folks? How are we doing? Some guy named Steve here alongside my co-host. Wait a second. That doesn't look to be like Mr. Meerkat. We got someone else. You may have seen him on the Cap, on everything, on Happy Hour Hoops. We're actually not talking basketball today, Jake. We're talking some football, some best bets for the weekend. Jake, how we doing?
Living the dream here. So happy to join you on this wonderful week 3 slate. I don't know how wonderful it is. I guess we'll get into how wonderful it is because what do we got? Seven home underdogs this week going into week 3. Fucking this could be a brutal week. I feel like it's always week 3, week 4, week 5 where Vegas just cleans up once the odds start kind of shifting around. Which doesn't maybe it does bode well for me, but shouldn't because I've been very slow to start the year in my NFL betting. So I'm hoping maybe if it's this week that it kind of turns me back around, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. I think week 3 is finally when Vegas starts to learn a little bit about the teams because as much as we think Vegas knows about the teams, week 1 and 2, we kind of all learn about what these teams are. Week 3, 4, 5, that's when you really start to learn who are the good teams, who are the pretenders, who are the contenders, what have you. And I'll tell you what, Jake, each week when the slate comes out, I kind of go through it just initially on like Monday or Tuesday, just kind of look through, see what I like. I had way too many road favorites, and I go, Steve, you know better. You know better that these road favorites, they aren't all winning, despite in your head thinking these teams are better. It's the NFL season, right? Anything can happen. We saw crazy upsets last year. We saw crazy upsets already this year. And the biggest advice I could say, or the biggest difference between NFL and college, the difference between the best team in the NFL and the worst team is not that big of a gap. They're all paid professionals. They all got here because they dominated at every single level before the National Football League. So it's one of those weeks where it feels like a lot of trap games. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. But first, Jake, before we dive into our best bets, because I can't wait to hear yours, we got to give a shout out to BetUS. Listen up, guys, sports bettors. Your favorite book, BetUS.com, is back for the 28th year of NFL action. I'm 28 years old, Jake. This is the same age as me. BetUS has been around a long time. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on not just only the NFL, but the UFC and MLB too. If you're looking for live in-game betting, BetUS has it with incredible odds, with daily odd boosts, props, and parlays. Jake, you know I love my parlays. BetUS has them all. And how about payouts? Exceptional one-on-one customer service. That's very important. You need the one-on-one customer service. They got it too. Just log in to betus.com. That's betus.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BET-US. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Shout out BetUS. Jake, BetUS, where the game begins. And we are going to begin with our best bets. And it would be just so disrespectful if I did not allow you to give your first pick of the week, Jake. You are the guest of honor, so start it off for us.
How kind of you, Steve. Well, first of all, you need to update the people on what's your record here after 2 weeks. I know that I see after here you had a 3-2 week 1. How'd you end up last week?
I think I went 2-3. I think I was 5-5, but as you guys know from last week, it was the touchdowns that saved me. Didn't give out the touchdown round robins on the show, but they saved me. And then I think Meerkat and I had a rough week too on the best bets, but we're looking to bounce back in week 3. We did our right outside of the show because, of course, that's just how things work.
Naturally, yeah.
So we're looking to make it work on the show and outside. I'm not trying to go back outside of the show, but I want to have my bets here be just as great. So, Jake, you are our guest. Can you get the nice 5-0 week? I don't think either Meerkat or I have had it yet.
We'll see. I feel pretty good, but that's always the dangerous game. My first one is simple spread, simple everything here. Okay. Chiefs -5.5. One of those road favorites who we were worried about. They're not one of the ones I'm worried about, though. I don't care what the Colts have looked like in Jacksonville in the past. Last week was pretty abysmal from all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan's arm, it just looks like it's lacking something, like lacking pop, lacking anything. Their receivers have been hit and miss all year. Michael Pittman obviously had the big week 1 game, missing last week. None of these guys really picked up in there. So while I do think that the Colts being home will maybe be able to effectively run the ball, you're giving me this team just doesn't give me the look the first 2 weeks of a team that's really going to be a competitive football team. And the Chiefs, it looks like the Bills and Chiefs world and everybody else living in it. So you're going to give me a touchdown for the Chiefs. I'll take that any day of the week. I think that they win by 10 points easily, but I think it's going to be more of a 2-possession game at the least. I just think that from my first 2 weeks of impressions, my overreactions is that's the kind of talent gap there is between these two teams. So give me Chiefs -5.5.
So I'll agree with the points you made, right? I think the Chiefs have looked so much better this year than the Colts. I'm just going to do a slight strike one on you where you're subbing in for Meerkat. Meerkat fades the public, and the Chiefs right now, the most publicly bet team. Everyone loves the Chiefs at -5.5.
That's because they watched Matt Ryan throw last week.
But I know, I'm with you there. The Chiefs look dominant. The Colts look like a joke against the Jaguars. It just feels a little fishy to me, Jake, that the line is not over a touchdown, right? If you would have told me before week 3 started that the Jags were going to shut out the Colts, the Chiefs were going to, pretty much play pretty well against the Chargers. I know the Chargers had a chance to go up, but then the Chiefs got the pick 6, and it was basically a 2-possession game before the backdoor cover, and they dominated the Cardinals in week 1. If you would have, kind of told me how the NFL season, played out where the Colts tie the Texans, get shut out to the Jags, what's the line going to be against an undefeated Kansas City? I would have said it has to be over a touchdown. It's still under that, which makes me a little suspicious, but I think we know by now, Jake, you don't fade Patrick Mahomes.
Nope.
You don't fade that, man. It never ends well when you do. It never ends well when you do. And I'm gonna go.
They are the most public. They are the most publicly bet team this week. But if you're looking at the Buffalo Miami game, for example, which is right now 61% of the public on the Bills, and they're also 5.5-point favorites.
I know
at Miami. I mean,
it's
doesn't
weird.
It feel like the Bills should be bigger favorites, and that's why I feel like I don't feel as good about the Bills spread as I do about the Chiefs spread for that reason, because I feel like Miami is clearly been a better football team than Indianapolis. Right. And Indy could turn it around and have a good game. Right. The way that they match up is probably what is the biggest thing holding this, because if Jonathan Taylor's going to get loose a game, and if it happens this week and they control the ball and there's lack of possessions for Mahomes and everything else, you can see how it gets there. Like I'm with it. I see the vision there, but I just think there's too much of a gap between these two teams at this point.
No, I agree with you. I think it is a little strange that it's not a touchdown. I think the Colts, obviously, they're getting Michael Pittman back this week, which is a big boost, which will help them. To beat the Chiefs, you got to, control time of possession and run the ball a lot, which the Colts could do with Jonathan Taylor. But we really haven't seen anything so far this year that makes us confident the Colts can do either of those things against a Chiefs team, and at least stopping Patrick Mahomes, who doesn't, I guess, matter which receivers, running backs, tight ends he's thrown to. He's just going to make it work. So I'm fine with it, Jake. All I'm saying is Meerkat is a huge fade the public guy. So we'll see how Meerkat likes that one.
He probably won't. I don't think
he probably won't. He never likes my picks anyway. So whatever. I'll give you my first play of the week. And I'm actually going to go to the Bills-Dolphins game. I'm not laying the points with the Bills, Jake. I'm taking the over. It feels like kind of a square pick, but I don't care. It's over 52.5. We know who the mayor of Miami is, and his name is Josh Allen. 7-1 career record against the Dolphins. The Bills average 34.3 points a game in those games when Allen plays. The over total right now is 52.5. It's probably going to go up but when we get closer to Sunday, because we are pre-recording this. I want to let the people know these are the lines right now on Friday night. We are pre-recording. It may go up a little bit, but I love this over, Jake. I absolutely love it. Josh Allen, 25 total touchdowns in those 8 games. That's over 3 touchdowns a game. He's averaging over 300 total yards against the Dolphins. And you know what's great about this is the Dolphins offense can actually score a little bit. They can put some points on the Bills, mainly in the passing attack, which Tua has been incredible so far this year, averaging 369 yards a game, mainly because of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, that lethal 1-2 wide receiver combo in the NFL. Tyreek averaging 142 so far, Waddle 120 yards per game. They're going to move the ball on this Bills secondary. We know the Bills don't have Trey White, but Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer both ruled out. That is a big hit to the Bills defense. As much as you love the Bills, Jake, that is a big hit. That's going to be tough. I expect the Dolphins to score a little bit with the Bills. And we know the Bills aren't punting against Miami. Josh Allen's not punting. He's dominated this team since he was a rookie. Now he's one of, if not the best quarterback in the NFL. You expect him not to dominate the Dolphins? No, sir. I think he's going to walk up and down the field, and I think the Dolphins are going to answer. I see this kind of being like a shootout type game, like maybe a 38-34 type game where it's just offenses trading blows. I love the over 52.5 here. I think it's better to play this than Bills spread because the injuries in the secondary do scare me a little bit. And I think the Bills can win this game, but I think the Dolphins are going to give them a better game than people think. Now, I could be wrong. The Bills could just blow the Dolphins out of the water like Josh Allen's done basically his entire career. But this Dolphins offense has kind of showed me a little something. I didn't think it was going to work. I didn't think the quote-unquote Madden offense was going to work where you just get all the fastest guys on the field, right? You got Tyreek, you got Waddle, you got Edmonds, you got Mostert in the backfield. Like just speed everywhere. And it has worked to this point. And the only thing that could really counter the Dolphins' offense is that Bills' pass rush, which has been lethal. But I also think that would kind of help the over because you force Tua into some bad situations, some bad pressure, he will turn the ball over. We know a lot of Bills fans like to give him the nickname Tua turn the ball over. It's an over where I kind of like 52.5. I think both teams have good enough offenses to get to this, and I know the Bills' defense has been great so far this year. They've only allowed 17 points, but they don't have both their top safeties. Trey White's out there, and the Dolphins probably have the best 1-2 receiver combo that they're going to face so far this season. The Titans didn't have a passing attack, and we know what happened in week 1 with the Rams. Matt Stafford could barely throw the ball besides to Cooper Kupp, and the Bills were just getting after the pass rush the entire game. I like the over 52.5 here.
So I will say Jordan Poyer's still in. He's questionable for Sunday, but Dane Jackson
I saw today
Jackson
that they were both unlikely to play. I think they're both going to be out, but we'll see.
Yeah, Hyde definitely out.
Yeah.
And so similar concerns in the secondary with everything else. And I've even said even before Hyde was ruled out anything else, it was never get it. They're going to play a 2 shell. They're not going to get beat deep. It's the catch and runs that really concern me. The underneath routes with 2 rookies starting at corner and tackling and the angles that they're going to have to take, never playing against a guy like Tyreek Hill. So I love the over as well. But as a good faith Bills fan, I would never bet on the Dolphins striving. So I have a play for this game too. Also in I have the Bills winning this game, and I've took them on the money line on this because I do think that this game there is a scenario where it's close. And the team points as of right now, checking it, are set at 29.5. And I think with the way the Bills defense is injured right now, if you think they're going to win that game, then you think they're scoring 30 points. And that's pretty much even odds right now. So that's what I'm going with. Everything about the overs for the Bills that you said also applies. I just still think the Bills, even with the defensive injuries, if it's going to be a shootout, I don't care. I'd rather have Josh Allen than Tua Tagovailoa, and that's what I'm looking at more than anything else. Like any day of the week, and that's what Bills fans today. The timeline's a little bit hectic. My text messages a little bit hectic. People getting worried about Sunday, everything else. I'm like, listen, we've got the biggest gun going into the fight. Like sometimes good teams learn how to win games multiple ways. They've won by stifling defense the first 2 weeks. Now's the time where, the offense has to kick it into hyper gear and carry them. I don't think that I have no doubt that they can be able to do that on Sunday. So I'm rolling with the Buffalo Bills money line, and they're over a total of 29.5, which last night came out to plus 105 on the odds. So pretty solid there.
Yeah.
If you think the Bills are going to win.
Anytime you can get plus odds, it's a good thing. It's better than a 12-point teaser where you get minus 135 on 14. It's not saying anyone specifically, but anytime you can get plus odds, it's a good thing. We love plus odds. And I'm going to take a plus odds play. And it's a home dog, and it's kind of a pinch your nose type of play because this team has not looked good in the first 2 weeks of the season. Broncos Nation, let's ride. I'm taking the Denver Broncos plus 106 home against the 49ers. Jake, I want you, and I'm sure you probably looked at my notes, so you're cheating, but everyone at home, you can participate. Russell Wilson's played 20 career games against the San Francisco 49ers. What would you guess his record was?
Oh, I didn't. I looked at but I don't remember. 22, you said? He's
played 20 games. 20 games.
7-13.
He's 16-4. He is 16-4.
I was thinking the other way around.
Career record against the 49ers. He has
lost 4 times.
Dominated the 49ers. Dominated them in the division. He's won his last 4 matchups and 14-2 in his last 16. Well, guess what? He's on a new team, and I can argue that the Broncos have a better supporting cast than he had in Seattle. Now he gets a home game, a night home game against the 49ers. You always know it's tough to play in the elevation in Denver. I always love to give him a little boost at home. A night game, a big spot for a team Russell Wilson feels comfortable against, is good against. Like I said, 16-4 against the 49ers, 14-2 in the last 16. And there's no Trey Lance. We're back to Jimmy G. We've seen Jimmy G. We know what Jimmy G is at this point. He's not going to wow us. He's not going to do anything spectacular. And fun fact, Jake, Jimmy G, and I know it's a completely different team he played, 2-5 against Russell Wilson in his career. So you got the home dog, the team that is the underdog, has the better quarterback who dominates the Niners. And then on the other side, you have Jimmy G, who struggles when he faces Russell Wilson teams. Now, I know it's a different team, but tell me what, the Broncos are a better team than the Seahawks. I know the Seahawks beat them, but the Broncos are a better team. That's just a fact. George Kittle, I think he'll play, but he was limited in practice. So even if he's back, I don't expect him to have that George Kittle type of role. And that's Jimmy G's kind of favorite guy. And he also got an offensive line issues with the Niners, couple injuries that could really help Denver. I know Armstead didn't practice as well. But the big thing here is I like to look at who have you played, right? Who have you played before? Now, the 49ers played the Bears in a monsoon. And they played, I believe it was the Seahawks, okay? Yeah. The Bears in a monsoon and Geno Smith. I know the Broncos have been bad this year. I get it. I know they've been disappointing. But you're going from facing or defending against Justin Fields in a monsoon where the Bears refuse to throw anyways. All you got to really worry about is putting 9 guys in the box and hoping Darnell Mooney doesn't beat you. And then Geno Smith. Now you're facing Russell Wilson, who knows your defense because he played against it in the division his entire career and dominated it to a 16-4 record, who has new weapons with Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, who are both very good receivers. You have Javonte Williams, who's looking like a weapon for this Denver Broncos offense. And you get the Broncos in a home game under the lights as home underdogs. I think plus 106. I think the wrong team's favored here, Jake. I think the Broncos win as home dogs. It's one of my few home teams I love this week, but I love the Broncos to get it done. I think this is the game where we're like, okay, the Broncos are still a pretty decent football team. Because I know you weren't on the show earlier. Meerkat and I are pro-Texans, guys. We think the Texans are slept on by everybody. The Texans, despite the Broncos beating them, Texans played all right. I don't think the Texans are a joke. So it's not like, the Texans are the worst team in football. I think the 49ers could have played two of the worst teams in football so far with the Bears and the Seahawks. Now you play a Broncos team like with a quarterback who has owned you his entire career. I'm taking the Broncos plus 106.
That's a worthy argument. I can't. They were one of the home dogs I was also looking at just because the spread being so small, but being at home. I don't know why it's not ringing in my head that Russell Wilson's dominated the Niners that much. That still is like striking me as a crazy stat to hear, even though I've been watching football, Russell Wilson's whole career play out. I'm just not as convinced about this Broncos team. And that's really what scares me. And it's because of Nathaniel Hackett and what I've seen from the chaos that has really happened the first 2 weeks in game situations, everything else. I think what holds me up as much as I'm with you guys on the Texans. I'm a Texans. I don't know about, believer, but I like Davis Mills. I like Lovie Smith coming in there and bringing stability, and obviously they've got talent on the defensive side of the ball. Derek Stingley Jr. has been absolutely incredible at playing the first 2 weeks, some of the plays that he's been able to make. That being said, that's what worries me about it, is that defense had success, and that Niners defense is the toughest challenge that he's going to face this year. But I still think I'm going with you there on that Broncos pick. So we're riding there. I'm going to the other late night game. Okay. Monday night, where the New York Giants are 1-point favorites against the Dallas Cowboys in the Meadowlands. It's going to be a whiteout. Great atmosphere. The over-under is 39.5, which is hilarious to me. Hilarious. I'm going with the Giants money line here, though. At the -1, I'll actually say. Because this is one of my biggest gambling manifesto, whatever you want to put, it should be in there, I will never ever bet on a backup quarterback on the road. Then you add in a backup quarterback on the road in prime time. I just can't do it.
Division rival too.
Division rival. You're getting, and it's 1 point, or if you want to take the money line and take the extra bit, go for it. I would take the -1. And if you're feeling frisky, I'm going to do it Monday night. I'm adding a Saquon Barkley touchdown in there too, because I think if the Giants win, it's not going to be because of Daniel Jones. It's going to be because of Saquon Barkley. He was kept off the scoreboard last week after he had a touchdown in week 1, but is still, running all. He had 70 yards in the second half, I think. On last Sunday, he had 160 yards rushing in week 1. So he's been effective for most of the season so far. I don't think that stops on Monday night. So if you want to do that gets you to plus 186. But my official pick is just going to be the Giants on Monday night. And it's a bet against Cooper Rush, and maybe he comes out and surprises me. But backup quarterback on the road, prime time, usually doesn't bode well. And Kayvon Thibodeau's first game as a Giant is also Monday night. So they're reloading on that pass rush as well.
Yeah, true. I don't hate it, fading a backup on the road, especially coming off a huge win, right? I always like taking those teams after a team, that comes off a big upset win. I like the next week for them to get, knocked back down to earth. I will say just one thing, Jake. If anyone who is tailing you on this play, do they have to watch the game? Because I might take the play, but oh man, Giants, Cowboys, Monday night. I don't know.
Saquon Barkley for me is appointment viewing, and especially in a game like this. And Saquon Barkley versus Micah Parsons, get all the Penn State in there, will be appointment viewing. No, this game's gonna be terrible. If you got better things to do Monday night, I would recommend you do that. I will. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. Wouldn't put that past you. For 39.5, Steve. 39.5.
I know.
That's where they started too. It's not like it moved at all. It started at 39.5 and it's still 39.5.
Last night's game was 38.5. That over hit because the Steelers kick a field goal, and then the over really hits with the final play lateral, which
I had a friend who had an adjusted under of 45.5 on a bet and took the McAfee Super Boost last night.
Yeah.
And
I had a few friends have the Steelers teased. One had them teased with, I think it was the over in the Coastal game, and then the other one had the McAfee boost, and they were not in good moods today, to say the least, Jake.
I can't imagine they were.
But you know what did hit in that game was Deontay Johnson, my beloved Deontay Johnson, 3-0 in receiving props. And Meerkat and I, we love our wide receivers. We love our young wide receivers. We always go back to the well with these young wide receivers. And Jake, I'm going with a young wide receiver here who I was a little down on coming into the season, has really impressed me the first 2 weeks. That is the Atlanta Falcons rookie receiver, Drake London. Over 4.5 receptions at -115. I really like that number. I also kind of like the yards at 54.5. I'm almost debating parlaying those together or taking them both as individual plays. But my play for the show is London over 4.5 receptions. He's been the top target in the Falcons offense. All the hype about Kyle Pitts, this, Kyle Pitts, that, Kyle Pitts all over. Kyle Pitts has really kind of been an afterthought in this offense so far. Marcus Mariota, he's a new QB, and sometimes the new QB will just pick who their favorite wideout is, right? This is Mariota's first year starting for the Falcons, and he has found a love for Drake London. He's led the team in targets both weeks. I think the first week he had 7 targets, tied for the lead. In week two, Drake London against my Rams had a 48% target share. He was getting open on almost every play. And this is Mariota we're talking about, right? Mariota would miss a lot of throws with London too, but London was eating. 48% of the team targets went to Drake London. He's got 19 targets this year, 13 receptions on those targets. He's been great, Jake. He has been a great receiver. He's getting open all the time. He's been Mr. Reliable. And they're playing the Seahawks, whose secondary is not great. They've allowed 18 receptions and 281 yards to the top receivers of both the Niners and the Broncos so far this season. The Falcons don't really have a wide receiver number 2. It's Drake London. I guess you can call Kyle Pitts, right? They're technically their second receiver. And then you got Zacchaeus, who only has 6 receptions this year, the next most, and then it really falls off. Drake London is the guy. They're playing Seattle, which I don't think is a great secondary. I think Mariota's going to be able to throw the ball a little bit. I love London over 4.5 receptions. I really think that London's going to get 10-plus targets in this game. He got 12 targets last week. I think we see 10-plus. And if Drake London gets 10-plus targets, I think he's catching 50% of those balls at least. That would hit the over for the receptions. I also like the yards a little bit, 54.5, but I love the targets over 4.5. I think Drake London we could see 7-8 receptions from him this week. London over 4.5 receptions at -115. You know I had to throw a young wideout in there. Drake London's impressed me. I'm riding with him this week.
All right. I like it. I've loved Drake London so far. I've loved to see I've loved what I've seen from Mariota so far and that Arthur Smith offense too. And I think the biggest thing we've learned from this show is that we think the Seahawks stink. And that is we should fade the Seahawks as many chances as we can get. So I'm with it. I am changing one of my picks here on you, Steve. So you don't know what's coming to you. And I'm also it's not gonna make Meerkat happy again. But the more I've been looking at it in this game. I'm just going to base it to you in one way. The Baltimore Ravens are -2.5 at the New England Patriots.
I know.
They now have started the year off with 3 straight AFC East games, which is very strange. And they will play the Bills not next week. Next week. So they start with 4
AFC East.
They start with 4 straight AFC East games. Assuming, I mean, they could beat the Bills next week.
They're home for that, I believe.
They are home. I do think the Bills will be favored next week, but I've been worried about that game all year long for the Bills. But to say the least, nonetheless, do we really think that the Ravens, who I think at least are a top tier team in the AFC, probably the favorites in the North, that they've been my favorites in the North, the only other team that I think can possibly match up to that Mahomes Allen tier is a guy named Lamar Jackson, the only other player I should say. The Ravens really the only other team in the AFC, in my opinion, that I think can match that up. Are they going to go 1-2 against the Dolphins and the Patriots? Or is it going to be the Dolphins and the Bills? Because the Dolphins and the Bills seem to make – I just don't see them. And here's the Patriots who, got a win last week, only scoring 17 points against a clearly offensively limited team in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Limited is being generous.
And their one touchdown is just one deep ball that Nelson Aguilar happens to make an incredible play on. nothing has inspired me about Mac Jones and the offensive play of the Patriots. And then you add in a pissed off Ravens team who's had to hear all week about how they blew a 21-point game. I just don't see the Ravens, and I don't see the Ravens going 1-2 in this division going into that Bills game against the Jets and Patriots if I see them as a contender in the AFC. So I'm just going to take that. And I know 72% of the bet is on the Ravens, and I'm definitely, concerned about Belichick and everything else, but it just comes down to how highly I think of the Ravens coming into the year, thinking that last week is a fluke. And maybe if they won last week, I'd be thinking the other way and think this was the trap game more than anything else. I just have a hard time seeing this team losing back-to-back games, especially after that week and especially to these two teams.
Yeah, I think a couple takeaways from that Ravens-Dolphins game. Number one, the Ravens blew a big lead, and the reason they did, their secondary's banged up again. These poor Ravens just can't stay healthy, but I don't think the Patriots really have the weapons to expose that secondary. The other point here, I feel like, and I don't have a stat or a number to back this up. This is more of just how I feel, and I can look it up later and confirm. I feel like the Ravens have struggled in Foxborough in the past. I don't really know that as a fact, but it just feels that way. And it's another play, though, Jake, that where all the logic is pointing towards the Ravens. Everything you said, I completely agree with. I haven't seen anything from this Patriots offense. They really barely moved the ball at all. You're right. Besides that deep touchdown, there really wasn't much. And Mac Jones hasn't really shown too much. The Patriots don't really have too many weapons that can expose the injured Ravens secondary. And I really do like the Ravens score a lot of points. I think Lamar Jackson's fully healthy. He gives that extra dynamic. He's been running like crazy. I want to take the Ravens too. It's another game that Meerkat's going to be like, fade the public, because the public loves the Ravens. But sometimes, Jake, the public doesn't lose every bet, right? Sometimes they win some too. So I think all your reasons are very sound. I also love the Ravens. I've been taking them to win the AFC North for the past couple months before the season started. And now I think they are the betting odds favorite. I think they're like even odds. And then you got the Bengals like plus 170 or whatnot. Browns, maybe. I haven't checked since the Browns won last night. But yeah, I kind of like the Ravens over the Patriots too. I just feel like they're the better team. And if it's less than a field goal now, it feels very, very trappy. But hey, I'll eat the cheese. I'll fall into it.
It is. I mean, it hasn't moved from 2.5. So they wanted you to. They've been trying to bait you into that Ravens pick, and I'm assuming that they think it's going to be, Belichick mucks it up. Belichick has played, schemed well against Lamar in the past and everything else. So maybe it's not as high scoring, but yeah. I just don't. A field goal feels like nothing for me with the talent difference in that team. And it's also, again, Mac Jones versus Lamar Jackson.
Right.
When I look at it just from that perspective, and I don't think everything else is even. I think the Ravens are better in a lot of other spots too, especially at the skill positions, depending on what injuries come out or injury reports come out for them and everything too. But yeah, I love it.
I get it. All right, Jake, it's that time of the show every week. It's the Stevie Bias play of the week. It's always the Stevie Bias play of the week. I think we've won our last two bias plays. I think week one was the Deontay bias. Last week was the Garrett Wilson, which I said was the most disrespectful line at 28.5 yards. And he had, I think, 102. He's a weapon. But the Stevie Bias play of the week is so biased this week because I'm taking my Rams. I'm taking the Rams minus 3.5 at the Cardinals. Listen, I know they haven't looked great. They got crushed by the Bills. I don't know how that game was tied at halftime because it felt like from the opening kickoff to the last whistle, the Bills dominated that game. If it wasn't for the Bills just dropping a few balls or some careless mistakes, they would have ran the Rams out of the building before halftime. They didn't look great. Outside of Cooper Kupp, Cooper Kupp's my darling. They almost blew a 28-3 lead against the Falcons, which that would have crushed me. That would have crushed me if they blew it. Luckily, I was a little distracted while I was watching the Las Vegas Aces win the championship. We were sweating out a little touchdown parlay there too. But they almost blew a huge lead to Atlanta. It was bad. It was really bad. It was lazy play calling in the second half. It was bad. But they're playing a Cardinals team which Sean McVay dominates. Sean McVay dominates 9-1 in the regular season against the Cardinals since he became the head coach, with a point differential of 15.7 points per game. That's over 2 touchdowns they beat the Cardinals by. Their spread record, 8-1-1. 8-1-1. They have dominated the Cardinals, and the Cardinals have not looked good at all this year. They got steamrolled by the Chiefs in week 1. I don't even know how they came back and beat the Raiders in week 2. That was a bizarre game. The Raiders were up 20-0 at halftime. I was like, all right, Cardinals are going to get run out of the building. And then they come back, win that game in overtime on a fumble. Hunter Renfrow just couldn't hold on to the ball at the end of the game. I don't know what's going on with him. But I'm actually happy the Cardinals won that rather than lost, because they win an overtime game. They go to overtime game, a big win. Now they're facing a division rival. I wouldn't want the Cardinals 0-2 against the Rams, a hungry team wanting to get a win. I want the Rams to go in there and steamroll the Cardinals, and I think that's what's going to happen, because there's 2 coaches, 1 college, 1 NFL, that I've said they need to be fired. They need to be fired. They need to be fired for years. We got one with Nebraska. Scott Frost, vamos. You're gone. Get rid of you. Good riddance. See you later. Cliff Kingsbury is the other one. He's not a good head coach. I have been on this train since he was hired by the Cardinals. He's not a good head coach. Fun fact, Cliff Kingsbury, Texas Tech. That's all I'm going to say about that. But anywho, I got the Rams -3.5. There's a couple logical reasons besides Stevie being biased here. The Cardinals defense allows 306 yards per game through the air. That is the Rams' strength. The Rams can't run the ball. Darrell Henderson hasn't looked good. Cam Akers hasn't looked good. The Rams just can't look good. Their run offensive line has not been great. But they can throw the ball, and they will expose you one of the best receivers in the NFL, Cooper Kupp. The Rams average 256 yards passing a game. I think they exposed the Cardinals' secondary. We also see the injuries are kind of leaning the Rams' way this week. J.J. Watt, James Conner, both limited at practice. The Cardinals are going to be without DeAndre Hopkins. Rondale Moore, still questionable, unlikely to play. I like the options the Rams have on both sides, offense and defense. I think they match up well. I think the Cardinals are going to be a bad team this year, and I think the Rams have, you're going to have your Super Bowl hangover. They got beat up in week 1. Week 2, they looked good, and then they kind of forgot that football is a 60-minute game, not a 30-minute game. I think this is the week they put it together a little bit, realized they're the best team in the NFC West, and I think they beat up on the Cardinals, a team that Sean McVay has just tormented his entire career. If there's ever a spot for the Rams to get right, to look like the old Rams again, it's this week. It's the bias play. I do not care, -3.5, and I'm not afraid to lay more than a field goal, because I feel like when you see the -3.5, it's almost the books begging you to take the points, because, you're getting more than a field goal. Division game should be close. No, Rams win big. -3.5, Stevie's bias play. Can't wait to come back next week when they lose.
I think the Cardinals stink.
I do too.
I really do.
I hope so.
I think I would take the Rams 3.5 in any scenario against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody is fooled by Kyler Murray's magic last week, and that just happened against another team that might stink, the Raiders. I think both those teams have not inspired a lot of confidence the first 2 weeks in me, and watching that comeback last week felt like more ineptitude than it did, Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray is magic sometimes, and that backdoor cover will be what you worry about late in that game. If it's like 31-20. That's where you're gotta be concerned with Kyler Murray more than anything. But I do love that play. So I've been deciding between 2 games here.
This is your last play, right?
Yeah. So there's 2 games here that I really do love. One a home favorite, one a home dog. I think I'm gonna go with the home dog though, which I like more, which on our BetUS odds here, they are getting 7 points at home in a division game. You want to talk about that? I'm taking the Washington Commanders because I think the hype has been too big this week. That line has moved up from 5 to 7 now for the Eagles. The Commanders have played good football the first 2 weeks. I mean, they got scored on a ton by Detroit last week. Detroit's done that the first 2 weeks. I think Detroit's going to do that
Detroit's
again this week against Minnesota. They had a good win over a Jacksonville team who we just saw dismantle the Colts last week, and everybody's back high on Jacksonville. That was a good win. And don't forget the biggest factor of this, and Jake's biggest factor and why he picks many different bets throughout the year. This is mostly an NBA thing for me, but sometimes in the NFL or in college football now, it comes it comes out perfectly. This is a Carson Wentz revenge game.
It is.
It is. And Carson Wentz is maddening to bet on. Definitely. I wouldn't recommend it for the faint of heart. It's going to be a roller coaster, but he's been pretty good in big spots both games this year so far. And I just think they keep it close. I don't think the Eagles are going to beat them by 14 points, by 21 points. I think it's in Washington. Those games are always close, the NFC East games. So give me the touchdown, give me the Wentz revenge game and all the skill position players he has around him. I mean, his receiving core, it's got to be rivaled among the best in the league at this point too. When you're talking about McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson, who is coming into his own, and I will be the biggest Jahan Dotson backer for his entire career and tell you how incredible he is. He's going to be the best receiver out of this class, honestly, in my opinion. So Dotson, they have high-end talent that he's throwing to, more high-end than he ever had when he was with the Eagles there. I think they're going to keep up with the points that the Eagles will be able to put up in this game and keep it within a touchdown. The other thing I was considering is taking that touchdown in Minnesota, because while we're, giving there's a lot of hype on the Lions and all the points they've been able to score, we have not seen them on the road yet. And that is a different animal than playing at home, especially for teams that are average like that, especially for a guy like Goff, who we've seen in the past excel at home and then go on the road and struggle. So I do love the Vikings with that minus, even on that spread. But I'm going with the Commanders here. I love the division aspect. I love the Carson Wentz being more motivated. Maybe that fucks him up. Maybe he throws like 5 picks. That's a mess. But I'd see that more in Philly than I do in Washington.
Another sound reasoning for your pick, Jake, and I think the best point you brought up is something that doesn't really have any stats behind it, right? It's the classic overreaction. What have we heard since that Eagles-Vikings Monday night game? Oh, Eagles are the best team in the NFC. Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. Eagles-Bills, how crazy would that be if full fan base, you know what I mean? We only hear Eagles this. And you're right, it's a division rival getting 7 points at home. I kind of like the spot. And also for your Vikings play as well, classic overreaction the other way, right? Vikings stink, Kirk Cousins bad. Every time Kirk Cousins poops his pants on primetime, he comes back the next week and has a great week when no one cares about him because no one's watching him. Because he's, muddled in that 1 p.m. slate with all the other teams. So I kind of like both your Commanders and your Vikings. I kind of like both those spots, Jake. I think you're doing all right. I think you're doing well for your first week here. And I'm going to give you guys my last pick. But before that, one last shout out to BetUS.com. Sports bettors, your favorite sports book, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action, live in-game betting, incredible odds with daily odds boosts, props, parlays, fast payouts, and most importantly, exceptional one-on-one customer service. They got it all. Log in to betus.com or call 800-792-3887. That's betus.com and 800-79-BET-US. Jake, betus.com saying parlays, and I'll tell you what, I had a nice parlay over the weekend, as we know. I wish I gave it out on the show. I wish it wasn't just a Sunday morning, I'm going to try some round robins, right? We had a nice 6-leg. We played it as a round robin, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6. And I had all plus odds to score touchdowns in there. So it would be unjust if I did not at least give one of the players I think is going to score a touchdown this week at pretty good plus odds. I'm not telling you to take a running back at minus 150. No parlay fodder here. Plus 170. It's my favorite value so far of the early game slate that I saw. Or I don't even know if it's early. It might be 4 o'clock. I don't know. Whatever. The Sunday slate. It's Michael Pittman Jr. anytime touchdown plus 170. Michael Pittman Jr. was out last week with an injury, and we saw how the Colts offense was without him. He is in. He is confirmed. He is active. He's going to play this week, and they are playing the Chiefs. Michael Pittman to score a touchdown is plus 170. What do the Chiefs do well, Jake? They score touchdowns. The Colts are going to have to pass this ball and score with them if they want to stay in this game. The Chiefs' secondary is probably the weakest part of their entire team. They allowed 8 receptions, 113 yards, and a touchdown in week 2 to the Chargers' number 1 receiver, Mike Williams. who really isn't their true number one because Keenan Allen was hurt, but the number one of the game, Mike Williams, 8 for 113 and a score. And the week before against the Cardinals, where the Cardinals still played horrible, their number one, who was his first game as a Cardinal, Marquise Hollywood Brown, 4 for 43 and a touchdown. Both number one receivers have found the end zone. They got a healthy share of targets. The Chiefs don't have a shutdown corner. They lost their rookie corner. He's out for the year. So I think the Colts are going to trail in this game. I'm with you where I think the Chiefs are going to do what they want on offense. And if you want to get back into the game, you got to throw the ball. And it's going to be a huge difference from not having Pittman in week 2 to having your number one receiver back. I think in the first week, he had 13 targets, 100 yards, and a score. I love this prop. Plus 170, I think, is the fairest value. You're not going to find another true number one receiver that really has right around plus 150 or higher odds. Plus 170 to score. He'll absolutely be in the round robin with a bunch of other guys that probably won't score this week because we hit big last week. So you know how it works. We know how this works. But Michael Pittman at plus 170, his competition for targets. Paris Campbell, who was supposed to be their number one option last week, 2 targets, no yards. Alec Pierce, who's dealing with his own injury, and Ashton Doolin, who played all right last week, had a few catches. But Michael Pittman's the clear number one here, Jake. I think even if he doesn't get it at the start of the game, this would be the perfect garbage time scenario if the Chiefs are able to run away with it. I think there's a lot of options where Pittman will get red zone targets. The Colts don't have great tight ends. I think their tight ends only have 8 combined targets through 2 weeks, and that's all the tight ends, not just one. Not great. Michael Pittman's going to be the one they target in the red zone. Plus 170. That's my final play of the week. I'll lock it in.
I love me some Michael Pittman Jr., so I'm with that. And I'm going to be listening to whatever Steve tells me to do for touchdown bets going into Sunday. Because, yeah, last weekend was insane. And you did send that to me at like 10:30 my time, 11:30 your time. And I looked at it. I was like, I literally went back and looked, and I called you a maniac for doing it. And then 3 hours later was like, oh my God, this is crazy. It is crazy.
It is. I'm telling you, those touchdown parlays or the round robining them is the way I like to do it. It's my favorite way to play. You have to do it with all plus odds guys. You don't want to do it lay juice with any of them, but the round robin with the plus odd touchdowns, so much fun. We're off to a good start too. Thursday night, gave out a touchdown. Najee Harris, he got in the end zone. So we're all right. We're on the right track.
I will say, I gave out, if you listened to the Crowdus' podcast last night, I gave out my play, which was a parlay, which was Chubb and Harris both getting touchdowns and both rushing for over 50 yards. All those things hit. And I wish I would have put something nice more on that.
Right.
But that's like, we're not doing that with these running backs here on Sunday. Like you said, plus 170, Michael Pittman. I will say last Sunday I did have an anytime touchdown parlay in for you or for the late games, and Trey Lance was in it, and it was a very sad afternoon for me watching the anytime touchdowns. So I'm bouncing back this week with something. Like I need to like redeem myself. I felt like a jinx. I felt like I was like a bad luck charm last week. So I'm going with I'm going to go with something. I don't know yet. I was looking at Adams, Diggs, and Kelsey as just big favorites.
Yeah.
And guys that are going to get, I mean, Adams has been getting targeted. Adams and Diggs, their target shares are both ridiculous right now. So I feel like them, and then Kelsey, he scored 2 weeks ago. I mean, how many times does Travis Kelsey go in a row without scoring? And I think, if I'm putting my belief in the Chiefs, as I have said at the beginning of this podcast, sorry, Meerkat, then I think that Travis Kelsey is going to be a big part about that. So we'll see. I think we're going to have to talk about touchdowns on Sunday. I'm going to need your advice.
We definitely will. I have so much pressure now because now everyone's be like, Steve, what's your touchdowns?
Everybody.
None of them had. That's just how it works.
It works, yeah.
Jake, thank you for joining me for some football best bets. Shout out, Jake, for stepping in for Meerkat. I'm sure we'll see Meerkat post his play. So everybody be on the lookout for that. You know Meerkat. He's like me. We can't go in an NFL game. Yeah, we can't help ourselves. We have to throw our plays out there. No matter how busy Meerkat is, he'll get his plays out there for you guys. We didn't have the best week last week with our best bets, but we're looking to bounce back this week. We're looking to ride the high from what we did do outside of the show last week. Bring it into the show. Jake, anything else you got to say? Your first time on Best Bets. Are you going to beat me this week? You going 5-0? Are you going 5-0? And it's just going to become the Jake Best Bets show?
Of course I'm going 5-0. I go into every week thinking I'm going 16. I have a picks pool every week. So I have to pick every game no matter what. And I've already paid the money out for it. So I go into every week thinking that I'm going 16-0. It just, sometimes
I have that mindset.
Sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. NFL has been brutal to me to start the year. I've made all my money. My betting has gone make a bunch of money Saturday and then lose it all on Sunday for the last 2 weeks. Like that has been the first 2 weeks. So eventually that's going to flip because that's how it'll go. I'll lose it on college football as I'm getting it in the NFL season. So maybe that's this week because I feel very good about the college football slate and don't feel as good about the NFL
that's how
slate
it goes.
Looking at it, and it's probably going to flip.
Yep.
So, but no, I feel good. 5-0 feels really good. I think these are all locks. I don't even know what the last pick I gave out was, if it was the Vikings or it was the Commanders officially. Take both of them though. 6-0.
Yeah, why not? 6-0 for Jake, and that touchdown parlay you had 7-0 for Jake.
And my first pick with the Vikings was money line and Jefferson touchdown. So you want to go with that? Go with that too. That's probably what I'll
for Jake. Just rack up the wins. Take all Jake's picks. Fade all mine. Because you know what happens after a big week. You lose everything. Take Jake's. Fade mine, Jake. You go 8-0. You're taking our spot next week. It's just going to be the Jake show for Best Bets. But thank you, as always, for joining us. Thank you, BetUS. Guys, let's go make some money this weekend. Let's win some money. Let's have some fun weekends. I want to see crazy screenshots. I want to see winning tickets. I can't wait, Jake. Fall is elite. Maniac, that's for you. Fall is elite. The best season. It's finally here. Let's go win.
Told him.
The people
told Maniac. That bet. It's still like 77%.
Yep.
What can you say? Let's ride. Free money on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for having me, Steve.
Of course. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. See you guys later. Good night now.